I arrived in The Hague with a 1-year contract at the court and very little else. In those early days when the city was a stranger to me, I rode the tram without purpose and walked for hours at a time, so that I would sometimes become lost and need to consult the map on my phone. The Hague bore a family resemblance to the European cities in which I had spent long stretches of my life. And perhaps for this reason, I was surprised by how easily and frequently I lost my bearings. In those moments, when the familiarity of the streets gave way to confusion, I would wonder if I could be more than a visitor here. Still, as I traversed the roads and neighborhoods, I had a renewed sense of possibility. I had lived with my slow-moving grief for so long that I had ceased to notice it, or recognize how it blunted my feeling. But now it began to lift. A space opened up. As the days passed, I felt that I had been right to leave New York, although I didn't know if I'd been right to come to The Hague. I saw the details of the landscape in high and sometimes startling relief. Because the place was not yet worn down by acquaintance or distorted by memory, and because I had begun looking for something, although I didn't know exactly what. It was around then that I met Jana, through a mutual acquaintance in London. Jana had moved to the Netherlands 2 years earlier than me, for her job as a curator at the Mauritshuis. The housekeeper of a national gallery, she called the position with a wry shrug. Her character was the opposite of mine. She was almost compulsively open, whereas I had grown guarded in recent years. My father's illness had served as a quiet warning against too much hope. She entered my life at a moment when I was more than usually susceptible to the promise of intimacy. I felt a cool relief in her garrulous company, and I thought in our differences we achieved a kind of equilibrium. Jana and I frequently had dinner together, and that night she had offered to cook. She said she was too tired to eat in a restaurant, and it would save us both money. There was the matter of her new and not inconsiderable mortgage. Jana had recently purchased an apartment close to the old train station, and had been urging me to move to the area when the lease on my short-term rental ran out. She had taken to sending me listings, assuring me the neighborhood had much to offer. Among other things, it was well served for transport. In fact, her commute was now easier. A direct tram ride rather than a transfer. As I walked from the tram stop to her apartment, broken glass crunched underfoot. Jana's building, a modest structure lined with balconies, was wedged between a public housing block and a new condominium of steel and glass, two aspects of a rapidly changing neighborhood. I rang the intercom and she buzzed me in without a word. She opened her door before I was able to knock. Things at work were a nightmare, she announced without preamble. She hadn't moved from London to The Hague in order to spend her days poring over Excel spreadsheets. And yet that was exactly how each day passed. She worried over budgets and press releases, and as for the art itself, she barely saw any at all. Somehow that had become somebody else's responsibility. She waved me in and took the bottle of wine I handed her. "Come sit with me while I cook," she called over her shoulder as she disappeared into the kitchen. I hung up my coat. She handed me a glass of wine as I entered the kitchen and turned back to the stove. "The food will be ready in a minute," she said. "How is work? Have they said anything about your contract?" I shook my head. I didn't know yet whether or not my contract at the court would be extended. It was something I wondered about with increasing frequency. I had begun to think that I would like to stay in The Hague. I found myself scrutinizing the assignments I received, the manner of my supervisor, seeking an augury of some kind. Jana nodded sympathetically and then asked if I had looked at the listings she had sent. There was an apartment available in the condominium opposite.